All right. I think I'm live. I'm Denver Holt and of the Owl Research Institute, and I'm going to answer some questions today. And this here is Liberty,
Hi,
our
everyone.
development director, and she'll be asking me the questions that you guys provide, and hopefully that I can provide some answers for you today. And so I think we're live. Let me know if we're not, Jonathan or Courtney or somebody. So
I think we are.
I'm ready, Lib.
All right, I think we can get started. Lots of good questions here. So we're going to start off with questions about ospreys.
Osprey.
So the first one says, can you give us your full account of how the fledgling ended up in a nearby nest?
Okay. All right. Well, here's what happened. I was down and around the barn and just, doing whatever, like I've been doing all year. When I came back around on the four-wheeler, I noticed that the male and female came off, which is pretty typical, and then they circle around and come back. But I noticed that the chick jumped, too. And to me, that was the first time I had seen a fly. Maybe it had taken a flight, and I thought, oh, pretty cool. So I went up to the top of the driveway and watched it fly around and watched it try to come in and land, but it didn't seem to have the ability to land. Came in and it backed off the perch, and then it went and tried to land on top of the barn. Then it flew around, and then the male came in. It was kind of interesting. The bird was flying, but it just couldn't land, is what it seemed to me. And the male seemed to try to redirect it as it was flying out and about, pushing it back towards the nest. But it looked like it was getting tired, and it flew out across the field. The male went after it, and it disappeared, and it looked like it went down in this field. And that was right around dark. So I looked for it, couldn't find it, went out the next morning, couldn't find it. And at this time, just knowing enough about birds of prey in general, if the female and the male isn't going to feed it, if it's down in the field, it's not going to get any food, then there's probably a high probability it just would starve to death eventually. And in talking to my friend Rob Dominich down at in Missoula, who runs the Osprey project down there, and reading some of the literature, if they leave a little premature from the nest and they get on the ground, they have great difficulty, or they can have difficulty getting airborne again, because they're used to going from perch to perch and being above the ground. So I thought the worst, and consequently, that's what I wrote to explore about, that I thought, this is a bad scene. But then it showed up late in the afternoon. I saw 3 osprey, 2 on a perch about 200 yards from the original nest, and 1 at the nest. And I thought, oh boy, it's back. Put the binos on. I could see it was a chick. It was with the male, and the female was back over the nest. She was screaming, which she usually does. And she seemed to be screaming for the chick to come back. And so eventually it came back, and we're all very happy now. How's that?
Stressful event.
That was stressful.
Definitely.
Because I've learned that there's a lot of things you guys demand of me. And so I was very happy to have that back.
Okay, let's see. This is a more technical question. Is there any indication the osprey can see in the dark more than initially suspected? Perhaps on an ultraviolet wavelength or a different part of the visual spectrum?
Okay, I'm assuming that you are hearing all these questions that Lib is posing to me. I'm not so sure about that. I guess I don't know if they can see in the dark, for example, like owls can see in the dark. And I don't know of any research that's maybe looked into rod-cone ratios in osprey, whereas in owls, you have a higher rod-to-cone ratio responsible for bringing in more light, projecting a brighter image on the retina. And I just don't know it with the osprey, so I can't really answer that. And the other thing with UV light, I think you need ambient daylight in order to have UV light. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that. So I can't tell you if osprey can see at night. They probably can see up to some point. And if you remember the video that one of the camera operators took of the male sleeping, and the female, she was there, and she started to get alert as that great horned owl came in the night, and we could see it because we had the infrared, and we could see the great horn coming in. But that male didn't see it at all, and that owl hit the male. But the female, she started, looking, so she saw something coming. So perhaps she has some ability, but it's probably not like an owl.
Okay. Do you know if the ospreys have ever used the other platform? It's about 200 yards from the present cam nest.
Yeah, that hasn't been used in years. But quite a few years ago, there was a stick nest up there, and the osprey used that. And then it just, it sits vacant now. All the sticks have fallen out of it. The geese have nested in it several times. And my neighbor He likes the geese, so he puts up, a bale of hay for the geese, and they tend to nest there. But the past 2 years, the bales have kind of fallen apart, and there's no nesting material there. Although it's a nice platform. So no, they don't use it, at least in the last several years. They've been using the platform we have at my house. But the male does go over there quite a bit and perch, and now the male and the female and the chick fly back and forth to those perches. But the male, if he sees other osprey come into that nest, he's right over there defending it and driving them out of the territory.
Okay. What happens to the ospreys once they reach South America? Do they stay as a pair or split up till spring when they return to the nest?
Yeah, as far as migration goes, whether they reach South America, and some go all the way to the equator, and some maybe even below the equator. Generally what happens, and again, a lot of the stuff, I'm not an osprey expert, but, from what I've read, and now I've learned actually quite a bit about ospreys the past several years, but my understanding is that, and we know this from our nest, the female will leave first. So they'll migrate independently. So the female will just up and leave, and she'll migrate to her winter areas. Shortly thereafter, the male will continue to feed the chick, and then he'll up and leave, and then the chick's on their own, and then it's some cue that it's probably innate, the chick will leave. So the males and the females will find their own separate wintering areas, which they'll tend to, find a territory and defend it, and the chick will too. And they tend to return to those wintering areas. Now, when they get down there and the female goes to hers, the male comes to his, some of the satellite data indicate they take the same routes from year to year, and then when they come back usually within a few days of each other, but again, not wintering together. The young of the year will stay down there around to 3 years, in the wintertime, and then in their third year they tend to move back and to the natal origin and establish territories on their own, or try to secure territory.
Okay.
Hope that helped there.
And on average, how long does an osprey live?
On average, I can't know the average. The longevity records are 20, 25 plus years. The average, hard to say because you never really know. I'm sure there's some data because there's a lot of marked osprey in the world and a lot of really good studies, but I can't tell you what the average is. I can just kind of give you the longevity in that 25-year range.
Okay. So now we've got a group of questions that addresses the relationship between owls and osprey. So the first one, we've been seeing a lot of recent instances of owls taking osprey chicks on various live cam nests. I know owls are powerful predators. Why do they choose osprey as their prey?
Yeah, why do they choose osprey as their prey? It's hard to say. First of all, you have to think of what percentage of the owl's diet is really osprey. It's probably very, very small. But with the advent of these cameras, we're able to see more than we, have known before, particularly what's going on at night. So maybe they take a few more osprey chicks than we've previously known, but it's probably not a major portion of their diet. And then as far as that, after that, it's probably just opportunistic, There's an osprey nesting near a horned owl, and the horned owls have the advantage at night because of their ability to see and hear. And, they're able to get in there and just treat them as another food source. But I don't think the percentages are really high. But again, now that we have these cameras and we have infrared, we're learning more than we maybe previously had known.
Okay. So one viewer here asked in regard to the great horned owl if maybe, them taking the osprey chicks is because their ground prey is less abundant.
Well, certainly that video that one of the camera operators captured this year at our nest here was phenomenal. And now, did that owl come in here to try to kill that male osprey and eat it? Or was it just like, hey, I think I'll just whack this osprey as I'm going out to hunt for the night? Who knows? Now, in the literature, there's indications where they have found adult osprey that were found below their nest and decapitated, similar to the way perhaps a great horned owl would feed. So there's evidence to suggest that they occasionally may kill them, but an osprey is a pretty big bird, and my guess is it doesn't happen very often. It would be really neat to be able to capture that, at night with one of our Explorer cams to really see it. But I don't know. I think that great horned owl, when that hit that osprey after reviewing it several times, it hit it. It didn't grab it and drop to the ground and then try to fight it and kill it. It just whacked it. So maybe it wasn't a predatory event. Maybe it was just, I can do this. Who knows?
Okay. So just in terms of size, how big a prey could a great horned owl take?
How big a prey? Well, certainly things the size of rabbits, snowshoe hares, cottontails, ducks, occasionally, when I grew up in the East Coast, great horned owls would tackle skunks, but I don't think that was really a thing that they want to do too often because the skunk sprayed them, that Butamer captain, and it just knocks them, it knocks them for a loop and it can blind them, etc. So, rabbits and ducks, pheasants are probably on the upper end most of the time.
Okay. So then one follow-up question is, do they ever eat when they're not hungry? Or is it...
Do they ever eat when they're not hungry? I don't know.
Could that explain why they were attacking the chicks at some point?
Again, hard to say. Sometimes they might kill things and bring food back and cache it. We certainly see that in snowy owl nests where they stockpile prey. So they may not be hungry, but they're stockpiling prey for chicks. But really hard to say. And maybe there could be the whole enemy thing too as well. You killing another predatory bird within your territory. And again, it's all speculation. But just hard to answer that definitively.
Okay. All right, so moving on, we're going to do some questions that are for the great grays. Okay. Has anything surprised you about the great gray owls or their young? And this viewer says thank you for the work that goes into making this site possible.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. We certainly enjoy doing all this. Stuff surprises me all the time. I've been studying owls for, seems like most of my life now. And again, and I've said this before, with the cameras and the infrared, I just learn more and more and more about what's going on at night and what's going on particularly at the nest. Outside the nest, it's difficult. There's probably more to learn. But I was really interested in the vocalizations, actually, the female and the vocalizations that she made when she was feeding chicks or brooding chicks or caring for chicks. I was like, God, these specific vocalizations I had never heard before, they definitely have meaning. And so that interested me as well. Tons of stuff to learn. That this provides. Now, outside of that nest, there's all the rest of the stuff that we still don't know. And that's why, like watching the Osprey, I don't watch the cameras that much, but the birds are flying all around me all the time. So I'm watching all kinds of cool stuff that you guys don't get to see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the chatters was able to get video footage of 2 owls in the wee hours of August 9th. One was in the nest tree, and remember, this is great grays. One was in the nest tree, and you could make out the white necktie. At what age do the owlets develop this? And is that a trait that's present at 14 weeks of age?
Okay, when do they develop that? I've never followed that closely, the plumage development of the great grays. We've done it in several other species of owls. But I imagine once they get their full juvenile plumage, that they have the white bib or the white necktie, whatever you want to call it. But I'm sure they have it when they get their juvenile plumage and now that they resemble the adults. There's some indication in great horned owls that they may get brighter or the patch in the throat may increase in size as they mature. And I don't know about that in the great gray. But at this age, at 14 weeks, they look just like the adults for the most part. And so they probably have that white bow tie, if you will, throat patch. And then after that, it'd be interesting to see, is it different between males and females? Does it have something to do with sexual selection when they're hooting back and forth? Some people think that great horned owl white throat patch is used in, males hooting back and forth to each other. It's a badge of power or honor or dominance or something like that. May be used in female selection where females say, oh, look at his white throat patch, dude, I'll mate with him. So it may apply there. But there are specific things like that. The pygmy owl has a white throat patch. The great horned owl, a white throat patch. The short-eared owl, the patches under the wings. There's certain characteristics or traits of the plumage that have function. We just don't know what it all is yet. And the white and the great gray, I'm sure it has some function. Maybe we just didn't know what it all is yet. And there's a lot of other people that know more about great gray owls than me. And so they might be better sources.
Okay. Could you give us some idea of what month the great gray owls will be nesting and laying eggs next season so we can be on egg watch? It's been a terrific first year with the great grays.
It's been a great year with the great grays. I've been thoroughly excited. We've been chasing great grays for many years and found a lot of nests over the years and learned a fair amount about them. But this year just took it to another level. I think that April, May, we should start, looking at that nest. And, the adults they're still hanging around. The family's still hanging around there. And so it'd be interesting to note when the adults start kind of going near the nest and looking at it and touch up. Maybe it's February, maybe it's January. Maybe we'll learn a lot more about when they start kind of hanging out like this is my nest and maybe not letting anything else come near it before they, start laying, incubating, all that stuff. So I would think I'm probably going to start watching it in February from time to time. I'm not going to watch it every day, but and then we have to start thinking April, May is when they're going to be laying.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think the great parents are going to use the same stump to lay the eggs? Any thoughts on that?
I sure hope they use the same snag next year. This was the third year in a row that they used this one, and who knows if it could get dirty and accumulate with a lot of dead and dying materials and have infestations of parasites and all that stuff. Hard to say on that one, but they've used it three seasons in a row, and it's the only one in that area. So hopefully they'll use it again. And maybe not go into a mistletoe or a stick nest made by a hawk or a raven or something like that, where it's going to be difficult to access. Will we move the camera if we find it? I have to explore that because they provide the means to do that.
Okay. In 2015, after the owlets, and this is great grays still, after the owlets fledged, we were still able to hear them and the adults for several weeks after the cams lost sight of them. This year, the owls seem to have disappeared from the nest completely. The nest area. We're not hearing adults or fledglings. Have all four disappeared from the area? If so, could this be a lingering effect of the harsh winter and perhaps less prey?
Is this the great horns or the great grays?
This is great grays.
This is great grays. No, I think they're still in the area.
Okay.
Now, the horned owls that we had the camera on this year, they've moved, and they just moved across the highway into an area that has better cover, and they're hanging around down there. But the great grays are still in the area.
Okay.
And we do know that. So just because we're not seeing them doesn't mean all that much, but they're still in the general vicinity.
Okay. Let's see. Do you know at what age the great gray owlets develop calls other than begging calls? We are hearing the contact calls and warning calls at night, but don't know if those would still be parent-only calls, or if by now the owlets are able to also communicate with those sounds.
Yeah, I don't know, with that. Certainly, probably by fall and into winter, they're capable of the primary songs, the they're probably very capable of that, and that's all innate in owls, so it's not learned. As far as the contact calls, the food begging calls, I probably can't answer that yet. I just don't know enough about it. But certainly, I would say that by autumn, that they're capable of hooting, and they're probably capable of breeding in their first year, physiologically. Now, whether they can get a territory and establish and what do you call it? Get a mate and establish a breeding territory. That's a different story. Probably females are more likely to breed at an earlier age than males because males aren't as picky as females, and so they'll take anybody. But the females, they probably want an adult male who can provide resources of several years. And thank you very much for calling in. And I definitely enjoy the questions, and I enjoy reading the comments. And if you want to learn more about what we do, you can go to the owlinstitute.org website. And as far as, the relationship with Explore goes, this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Explore. And I wouldn't be able to learn all this new stuff if it wasn't for the relationship between Explore and the Owl Research Institute. So we're quite grateful for that. Someone asked, how did you guys meet? Well, we met on a Polar Bears International. I was on a committee or whatever it was, a workshop there. We talked about Arctic wildlife conservation. And we met Tom from Explore there, and he liked the idea of owls. And we went down to Santa Monica, and I got to meet Tom and Charlie and the crew down there. And we took a chance in the first year and doing a owl cam, and now we're in our fifth year. We've done, I think, 5 or 6 species, 4 owl species, maybe 5 owl species, and the Osprey. So it's been great, and hopefully we continue and do it on cavity nesting owls next year, and that's what we're talking about recently.